And we're live. Thanks everybody for tuning in to another Righteous Dad podcast. I am your host, Brian Scoggins, aka Gunny. And with me today is my co-host and good friend Andrew Pratt. And here at Righteous Dad Podcast, we're committed to bring to you people, books, and stories that not only inspire, but can give you tools for you to live a more righteous life. Um, how's it going?
Going good, man. How are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic. Motivated to be here and just doing what we're doing. Looks like you had a couple of goal attainments behind you, looking pretty awesome. Looks like you got a dinosaur in the background.
Yeah, I actually killed that dinosaur for this podcast. Had to sacrifice its life.
Yeah, well, Chris Pratt's going to be pissed off if he hears about that. So, I'm looking forward to that new Jurassic Park coming out. I think this month or next month. I don't know. Thought it was coming up this month with Maverick as well. I haven't seen that one yet either, which I'm looking forward to. So, uh, you seen any
Are you
movies
talking?
recently?
You talking about the new Top Gun movie, huh? Is that
That was
mine or yours?
that was me. That was my that was me hitting the gong. That was me hitting the gong real quick. So yeah, a little blooper. Uh,
Yeah,
but
I saw. I took my kids to see Sonic. I don't get to see any good adult movies anymore in these days. It's always with the kids.
yeah, Sonic the
We
Hedgehog is
got
good.
that news.
Jim Carrey being the bad
We
guy.
yeah.
Dr. Robotnik. Yeah.
Yeah, it brings me back to my childhood. I was like a Jim Carrey super fan when I was my kid's age. So
Yeah, last time
it's
I did a
all
little
coming back full
impression of
circle.
Fire Marshal Bill on episode number 1. Hey, let me show you something. But the best one was back when he was on In Living Color and he was that um, I don't know if it was a Russian or Ukrainian bodybuilder. That was like the best one where he's like, hey, you know what I mean? He's got the pigtails and shit.
He was like a female bodybuilder
Yeah, he's a
that was
female
taking
bodybuilder.
steroids.
We should bring that stuff back nowadays when it's all this kind of craziness of, uh, you know, men, transgender women. Sorry, don't mean to get anybody triggered, but transgender women winning all these competitions. Man, I think it would be awesome to have a couple more Jim Carrey skits nowadays, or if he was a special guest on Saturday Night Live. But I don't think they would
Yeah,
allow that nowadays. So
it's not politically correct enough.
no. No, man, it looks good. I like the sign in the background and everything, right? You got that Righteous Dad logo in the back. I'm gonna have to get something like that too. All I have is my little coffee cup, and soon I need to get some swag. Get one of these cool flat bill hats with the
I know.
Righteous Dad.
I was jealous of your coffee mug, so I had to one up you.
It's pretty crazy when you get those Vista Print and all those different business cards. It's really easy to get your swag, man. And so for the listeners and viewers, whether you're listening in on Spotify or viewing in on YouTube, hopefully we'll have some swag for you guys. If you guys want to rep some Righteous Dad stuff, it's pretty cool. But yeah, man, it looks really good. It looks professional. It looks a lot better than the first one. So if you could, if you guys go to episode 1, you would see kind of a Stephen King type looking like scary window out the back. But I think that's like awesome, man. It takes out the sunlight and it looks good. Looks real good.
Yeah, I had to block out that scary window.
And then
Then
that dinosaur head, man, that makes you look smart. You know what I mean? Makes you look like one of those scientists on Jurassic Park that probably gets eaten within the
I
first 20 minutes.
100%. But I had every intention on like doing books and stuff like that, and I was like,
No,
I
man,
was at the I,
it should be vial tubes of like Tyrannosaurus semen and the different things behind spinning on, one of those plasma separators and shit like that. That's what you should
yeah.
get. You know what I mean? And I can just
I'm
lie
gonna
and
get
say,
that can.
here's,
I'm gonna get that.
and with me is Dr. Andrew Pratt from, Jurassic World. So
I'm gonna get that shaving cream can that they had in Jurassic Park and put it next to it or something.
you
Yeah,
should.
I had every intention on doing books, kind of like what you got going on. And then I was at the home decor store and I was like, I'm gonna get that giant T-Rex skull.
Yeah, all these books in
That's
the
legit.
background, I didn't read any of them. So,
That's just the outside sleeves of the book,
100%.
right?
They're a lot cheaper when you just take them right off and you can run right out the store with them. Barnes and Noble. That's kind of what crashed Barnes and Noble. But yeah, man. So it was cool to reconnect you yesterday and kind of go over what we are going to talk about on the second podcast. Given the fact that we don't We don't have any one to interview this week. Because I'm going to be moving. So I'm moving, got the keys to the house, and I'm really excited because the house has got a built-in office space to be able to do podcast stuff. But we were kind of talking about, goals and goal attainment, and we kind of challenged each other to come up with some talking points, and some books and different things that kind of help us attain goals and to stay motivated. So I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit, man, and kind of lead that into the discussion and share with you and with everybody that's listening or viewing some of the books and stuff that I've used and some tools that I've used to kind of help grow a little bit and attain a few goals that I have been able to. And one of the goals being is just this podcast, which is awesome in some of the ways of planning it and keeping ourselves accountable. So yeah, I wanted to kind of read a real quick part of a book that some of you guys and some of you listeners might have already listened to, but it's by Dr. Jordan Peterson. It's called Beyond Order. It's the second book of the first one was 12 Rules of Life, and this one is 12 More Rules for Life, which is really awesome. But when we started talking about goal attainment and seeking goals and stuff like that, one of the big things he was talking about is happiness and responsibility. So I just want to read some of that, and we'll kind of go in that and open up some of the discussion. But so this chapter is happiness and responsibility. It says people want to be happy, and no wonder. I have longed deeply many times for the return of happiness, hoping for its current presence, and I'm certainly not alone in that. However, I do not believe you should pursue happiness, for if you do, you will run right into the iteration problem, because happy is right now thing. If you place people in situations where they're feeling a lot of positive emotion, they get present, focused, and impulsive. This means make hay while the sun shines. Take your opportunities with things when things are good and act now. But now is by no means everything, and unfortunately, everything be considered, at least insofar as you are able. In consequence, it is unlikely that whatever optimizes your life across time is happiness. I'm not denying its desirability. By the way, if happiness comes to you, welcome it with gratitude and open arms. But be careful, because happiness might make you impetuous. I think I said that right. What might serve a more sophisticated alternative to happiness? This is where it gets good. Imagine it living in accordance with a sense of responsibility, because that sets things right in the future. Imagine as well that you must act reliably, honestly, nobly, and in a relationship to a higher good in order to manifest the sense of responsibility properly. The higher good would be the simultaneous optimization of your function and the function of the people around you across time, as we discussed previously. That is the highest good. Imagine that you make aim conscious and you articulate the aim as an explicit goal. This is where it kind of goes into the goal aspect of it. Then the question arises, what is the consequences of that psychology? Or psychologically, sorry. First, consider the most of the positive emotion people experience do not come from attaining something. There's the simple pleasure, more accurately, and satisfaction that comes from having a good meal when hungry. And there is more complex but similar satisfaction that is associated with accomplishing something difficult and worthwhile. Imagine, for example, you graduate from 12th grade. Graduation day marks the event and it's a celebration, but the next day, that is over. And you immediately face a new set of problems. Just as you are hungry again only a few hours after a satisfying meal, you are no longer king of the high school. You are at the bottom of the dog. You are the bottom dog in the workforce, or a freshman, or at a post-secondary institution. You are in the position of Sisyphus. You strove and struggled to push the boulder up the pinnacle, and you find yourself instead at the foot of a mountain. This is a good part. That's a good sentence right here. There's a near instantaneous transformation that comes from the consequence of attainment. Like impulsive pleasure, attainment will produce positive emotion, but also like pleasure, attainment is unreliable. Another question thus emerges: what is a truly reliable source of positive emotion? The answer is that people experience positive emotion in relationship to the pursuit of a valuable goal. Imagine you have a goal, you aim at something, you develop a strategy in the relationship to that aim, and then you implement it. And then, as you implement the strategy, you observe if it's working. That is what produces the most reliable. That is what produces the most reliable positive emotion. Imagine over time that the attitudes and actions that manage this most effectively in a competition that is very Darwinian come eventually to dominate over all others. Imagine that is true psychologically and socially simultaneously. Imagine that this occurs in your own life, but also across the centuries as everyone interacts and talks and raises a particular mode of being to primary status. No valuable, no valuable valued goal, no positive emotion. That is just a little bit of Dr. Peterson's book on kind of talking about happiness and responsibility, and how carrying your cross of responsibility brings with it positive emotion.
That's good stuff, man. Um, so I mean, the thing about Jordan Peterson, man, he's so smart. Like I feel dumb like listening to him talk sometimes. You know, he kind of leaves me in the dust. But he's really good about having an inter perspective, you know, a completely different. I mean, like his perspective on things is just like completely different than what most people the way they look at things,
Mm.
and um, it's almost like he's got a complete like he doesn't even have the same. It's not just the same view. It's like he's got a completely different like we're using eyeglasses and he's using VR headset or something on some things. The way he looks at things, and it's just completely just beyond my comprehension sometimes, like listening to him talk.
Yeah, I mean, for being a clinical psychologist, it's one of those things that he had a lot of time to think about these things, as a professor as well too. But when it comes to, so why I wanted to bring that up, and that just little part of the book is not only to push, you know, Jordan Peterson's book, but you can also find him on YouTube, and you can even find him doing his own podcast stuff now. And a lot of these things he continues to address, things that are going to bring you happiness in life. And in the first podcast, we had Doc Soto on, and we were talking about, veterans and suicide and depression and things like that. And the reason for that is because there's no longer any mission for them to attain, right? So they attained the mission, they got out of the military, they came home, and they didn't have any other valued goal or something that really called to them in order to pursue. And when you don't have that, there is no happiness anymore, right? So everything that you try to do, you get drunk to attain happiness and pleasure. You go gamble. You do something risky that hits you with some adrenaline, and all those things are unreliable in order to continue that happiness. So all they do is they kind of give up. And when you live in that kind of a mental cage, I think a lot of times people just quit. And when it comes to veterans that are having issues, there is no more mission. So part of MVP and what we were talking about on the first episode was how do we keep each other accountable, and how do we become part of a organization that can continue to help each other plan, attain goals, and actually look at what's important in life and try to attain it. So I think those things are super important. First, before we start talking about planning and goal seeking, because everybody has systematic ways of planning, is to understand that responsibility. And when we talk about responsibility, we all have different responsibilities. What are some of your responsibilities as a person that you kind of deal with every day?
Just being a dad, I mean, personal responsibilities, I've got my professional responsibilities, uh, and my career goals, lifestyle. I like to do jujitsu. I like to go to the gym. I mean, I've got so many different things that I'm balancing at any given time. You know, um, but you like what, financial responsibilities, personal development, just, I mean, the list goes on and on and on, and I mean, I couldn't agree more. Like, I mean, like I have to give myself goals to achieve, because like I find that, just similar to what you were saying about military personnel that are transitioning out of the military, when you don't have the mission, when you don't have a goal to work towards. I mean, I've been in, situations where I didn't have something that I was working towards, and I was just depressed, and I was just lost. I felt like I didn't know what to do. So definitely, like, having things to look forward to, like, it gives you a reason to want to get up out of bed in the morning. It gives you a reason to want to, it looks you, the reason to leave work as fast, get your work done as fast as possible. Because I can't wait till I get off of work. I can go do this podcast with Brian, or I'm going to the gym to
Oh
lift,
yeah.
and then I'm going, and then I'm going to jujitsu after I get done lifting. It's like when you're have something to look forward to, and you're pursuing something, and oftentimes the pursuit of your goal is big is has a larger impact on you than the actual attainment of the goal.
Right.
I mean, what
Yep.
what is attainment, right? I mean, what is a goal? I mean, we could talk about that. Like, I mean, the definition of a goal. I mean, if you Google it, it's a goal is an idea of of the future or desired result that a person or a group of people envision, plan, and commit to achieve. Uh, people endeavor to reach goals within a finite time by setting deadlines. So a goal is an idea, and then it has a beginning and it has an end, right? So
Hmm.
eventually you're going to get to a point where you've, quote unquote, reached your goal, oftentimes, but that happens quickly, and then all of a sudden it's done. So your project's done, whatever it was, whatever project you were working on. If it was long term, I mean short term versus long term. You had a short term goal to achieve a certain goal. Oftentimes you're going to learn way more in the process of achieving that goal
Right.
than what you're getting out of it at the end. And of course, you get that dopamine hit. You get the reward. The reward is what you get right at the end of it. You achieve your goal, but oftentimes it's the journey along the way that gives people the most pleasure and the most meaning, most feeling, the biggest feeling of achievement, right?
Yeah, and you said it kind of good. Like for people that are doing jujitsu and things like that, like that's a huge thing because it's when you talk about a goal set and we talk about a real valued goal, something that's not super easily or easy to attain or something that's real superficial. So a lot of times in nowadays we live in such a consumer culture that sometimes people have goals of attaining $1 million or a nice car or a nice house or getting 10,000 subscribers or whatever it is, right? So sometimes with those goals, once you attain them and you get them, and it's like, okay, it's on to the next thing. And I'm guilty of that for sure. If any of you guys know me, I'm all over the place, man. I'm like a squirrel always chasing the next nut up the tree or whatever, you know what I mean? Trying to get whatever. And it's sometimes when you have those goals, you attain a little bit of it and then you kind of lose focus. So I think it's important to understand when we talk about goals and planning, um, we're not talking about a weekly planner. We're not talking about, hey, let's plan to make some more money. We're talking about a little bit deeper when it comes to what is your calling, what is your vocation in life, what is the voice that called you when you were a kid that said, hey man, what do you want to be when you grow up? And when we talk about what Jordan Peterson's talking about with happiness and responsibility is living in accordance with that and parallel to that, what you're supposed to be doing as a person, that responsibility, that cross you're supposed to bear, the things you're supposed to create, the people you're supposed to motivate or help. You brought it up earlier, your responsibility as a father and how big of a deal that is, and living in accordance with the best things that you can do day in and day out to be that dad. Or the best boss you can be at your business, because yeah, you could be a good boss and you could do whatever payroll or you could figure out what's going on, but what are you doing when it comes to making actual change in the people that you're working for, or trying to lead them, or what are the goals that you're putting in front of yourself? You talked about going to the gym, and you're putting those little goals that never stop. Jiu-jitsu never stops, right? I don't know, I'm a purple belt, but I would imagine once you get a black belt, what I've heard from everybody else is you're starting over, right? Now you're a black belt, cool. You got your degree to become a doctor in a sense, but now what kind of doctor are you going to be? Now it's the time to start practicing medicine, right? And now you kind of move from there. And then another cool book that kind of brought me into the tie-in of Jordan Peterson stuff, where he talks about happiness and responsibility, is another book it's by Robert Greene. It's The Daily Laws, and it's 366 meditations of power, seduction, and mastery, strategy, and human nature. And if you haven't seen, it's really cool. Is Jordan Peterson actually interviews him on his podcast, and it's an awesome episode. I try to get you guys the details on that. But one of the things that I opened up was talking about the voice. And it has a saying from Abraham Maslow, and it goes by, the way to recover the meaning of life and the worthiness of life is to recover the power of experience, to have impulse voices from within, and to be able to hear those impulse voices from within. And what he's talking about, Abraham Maslow's, which he calls impulse voices, and he noticed that children know exactly what they like or dislike from an early age, and it's an extremely human and powerful. It's basically kind of the same saying as you might have heard, when you're 8 or 9 years old or in fifth grade or something like that. What did you want to be? Did you want to be a doctor? Do you want to be a firefighter? Those are the things that are calling to your inner voice or spirit of who you're supposed to be, right? And if you can tap back into that, and I know you have responsibilities, right, that are a little bit different. They're hard. They're hard to leave those responsibilities and pursue something that you're really passionate about. But if you're not planning and setting goals to work on yourself, you're going to be doomed just to work for somebody else, right? And I think that's what we're doing now. We're setting goals. A couple of friends saying, you know what, let's read some books, let's talk some shit, let's get some other cool people that may be black belts, brown belts in life, right? That can mentor and help. And whoever's listening to these podcasts or watching these podcasts can maybe take something out like, damn, that's a badass armbar in life. You know what I mean? Maybe I should use that to as a habit. Or maybe I can crack this code of the matrix and become more righteous and a better dad, or have, a better relationship with my spouse or whatever it may be, so.
Yeah, and you said that really well. Another way that I've heard it put was, you know, uh, I mean, as far as like goal setting, and the reason why we're talking about goal setting right now is because we feel like we have areas to improve on, right? We're projects all in ourselves. I'm constantly trying to work on myself, and one of the areas of opportunity that I identified that through talking with you is goal setting, proper planning. Like you just all these things that we're talking about, these aren't things that we struggled with. But another way of I've heard it described was, to piggyback off of what you were saying was, you're either working towards achieving your goals, or you're working towards helping somebody else achieve theirs, right? Another way of saying that is like you're either the main character in your own story, or you're a side character in somebody else's, right? So do you want to be an NPC character just going through the motions in somebody else's video game, or do you want to be the main character? I mean, me personally, I want to be I want to be a main character, right? Bong. Was that a good point?
Hey, my goal
that's a
setting is
good
to
point.
not hit the mic anymore.
I think Brendon Burchard, he made a comment. He said that I gotta find it. I wrote it down. More or less that mediocrity, going through the motions is the killer of high performance. Right? High performance don't go through the motions. High performers don't go through the motions. High performers, people who are in the top 5, 10, 20%, they do things with intention. Right? you're doing things because you're not there's no half measures, right? You're doing, you thought about it ahead of time. You're not just jumping in the water and hoping that you can figure out how to swim. Sometimes
Yeah,
you
it's
you
not
have
a
to learn how to swim.
subconscious
Yeah.
decision, is what you're kind of saying. It's more of a
Yeah. I
cognitive
mean,
thought process and
things
strategic plan.
100%. It's like walking with purpose. I mean,
Mm.
have you ever, I mean, I remember I had a personal trainer tell me this like years ago. And I was working on my posture and my walk. Just like it was on my gait, on my walk. And I was asking my trainer, like, how can I fix my gait so I have a more, and they told me just walk with purpose. And that kind of like that stuck out in my mind because I never really thought, I up to that point I thought that, like, well, the way you walk is the way you walk, right? Like that's just like your mechanics of your body. But you when they told me that, they said just walk with purpose. I said, what, you mean that I can change the way my body moves? And like, I know that sounds kind of, it sounds very elementary, but I mean, up to that point, like I got the lesson I learned from that was like, here, I gave you permission to be the architect of your life, right? It's
Mhm.
something that little lesson taught me, and I can kind of reapply that. Like, you have permission to be the writer, the director, the producer, and the actor in your own story,
Mhm.
right? So so we and that all comes down to setting goals. Because if you're not goal setting, like, I mean, me going to the gym, me going to jujitsu, I don't. I mean, a lot of times with everything that I've got going on and everything going on in my life, being a dad, okay, that's a busy life. I mean, you're raising another
It's a
human
full-time
being.
job. That's a full-time job for sure.
Yeah,
I got
yeah,
you. No, yeah,
and
yeah.
and having a full time career and going back to school and learning. And I'm doing jujitsu. And
But even in
I
one of
started I
each,
started lifting I started lifting weights again.
yeah,
And
and in
like, and
each
then
one
we
of those
threw a
responsibilities,
podcast in the middle of it, right?
in each one of those responsibilities, you have to decide what kind of actor you're going to be, like you said, right? So
Mhm,
each one of those masks, are you going to be the main character? Are you going to be the hero? Or are you going to be the villain? You
mhm,
you brought up like the way you walk, which is kind of funny too, because Jordan Peterson in his first book, one of the purpose 12 rules of purpose driven life, or the what is it, the rules for life is to stand up straight with your shoulders back kind of thing. And in the military, what's the first thing that we learn how to stand. They fix
right.
our posture, right? Because that posture itself is not only with you mentally and subconsciously, but it's how everybody else perceives you around the world, and or not around the world, but whoever, everybody that perceives you or sees you, and the way you are walking and their first impressions, right? So you never want to waste your ability to make a first impression. But I heard a really good saying too, is when it comes to who you want to be or who you think you are, is really important too. But I am not who I think I am. I am not who you think I am, but I am who I think you think I am.
Hmm. It's pretty deep.
You got to understand. So the way that I carry myself is the way, and I think of myself as how you think of me. So if I look like a slouch and you think I'm a piece of shit and you start to say stuff and that's what it is, I'm going to that's going to hit me and I'm going to start thinking about that way. So one of the biggest things is to roll your shoulders back and to walk with pride, because that actually does something for your the way you think about yourself and the way other people start thinking about you. You know what I mean? When they talk about lobsters, and then if you haven't read the book, it's a great book by Jordan Peterson, that 12 Rules of Life. But they talk about that alpha shit and that the lobsters and how they are, and it definitely affects the way you attain things and the way you think about yourself for sure.
I
I just
think I
wanted to hit that
know.
real quick when you were talking before, because it was funny that you were hitting that, because it was already it was like a perfect tie-in with Jordan Peterson's thought process too.
I think I understood the lobster reference, but go into too detailed about that for anybody that doesn't understand what you
So,
meant.
so the lobster stuff too, and they talk about, you talked about dopamine and different chemicals, serotonin, oxytocin, and things that you would find in some of Simon Sinek's books on how we uh, gain success and do things and how we are as leaders, and getting those quick hits of attainment, and those feelings of pleasure. It's something that, it's psyche, but through lobsters, when lobsters, and Jordan Peterson were talking about, when lobsters would fight, and they would win, the more that they would win, they would get more dopamine, and the higher they would go, and they'd get bigger and all that kind of stuff. Like they would get the positive chemical emotions that would cause the attainment and the instantaneous changing of who they were. So they get stronger and stronger, and the more that they won, the less, everybody, all the other lobsters around them. So it's basically a hierarchy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the way you walk and the way you handle yourself is going to positively affect that growth of a hierarchy of your attainment and in your social statuses and all those things that you kind of move up with. Now, please don't quote me, because I am not a doctor on any of these kind of things. And I have read those books and some Simon Sinek too. But that's kind of how it plays into what you're talking about. And I'm doing the best that I can to kind of improv of what that kind of meant in that tying of
No,
concepts.
that's 100% accurate. That's why I've read about that too, and that's why I kind of picked up on the reference that you made, but I just
So
wanted
it was a
to.
test.
No, I just wanted you to elaborate.
No,
I figured you could elaborate on it a little bit better
thank you.
than me, so I can.
I was like, shit, I gotta remember this.
So yeah, I mean, but it's 100% accurate, because so basically, the way it was, to my understanding, the lobster's brain actually, I mean, completely changes physiologically. I mean, it's like the physical structure of the brain changes,
As does
almost like
ours.
almost like a, a caterpillar. I couldn't remember the word. A caterpillar morphing into a butterfly. They create a cocoon, and they actually turn into a liquid. It's wild. They turn into a mush and then come out, and then it restructures their entire body into a butterfly, and they come out something completely different. The lobster's brain more or less completely changes. I'm not going to say it turns into a mushy liquid. I don't know the exact science behind it, but I mean, you've seen, I mean, like there's a difference. I mean, a beta lobster versus a more, aggressive winning.
Yeah,
Like
you want that king
one
crab,
looks
bro.
like
Yep.
Wario,
One's delicious,
right?
right? Dungeness is delicious, but that king crab,
Right.
man, that thing is beefy as shit.
Yeah, the big giant lobsters with
Yeah,
the giant
man.
claws
Oh
and all the
yeah.
spikes coming off of it. I mean, those are the ones that those are the dad lobsters that are, winning the battles. And
Yeah.
what it boils down to, like
No
using that
pun.
as an analogy to life.
What it
Using that
boils
as an
down to.
analogy to life. I mean, the small wins, that's another important aspect of goal setting is short-term goals, and so that you can give yourself the short wins, the
Right.
small wins, and celebrate your small wins, getting up at, deciding what time you're going to wake up, and getting up at that time, and achieving whatever goal you decided that you set out to do that day, whether it was to get up and read for 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever, or get up, read for 10 minutes, go work out for 30 minutes, or go for a walk,
Mm-hmm.
or having a water drinking goal. I mean, some of these things are a lot easier. I mean, we can cheat. I mean, there's so many different things and tools available to us today that weren't available to us 10 years ago. I mean, like my watch reminds me to stand up. I mean, it's just having a goal, short-term goals, and small wins throughout the day gives you those dopamine hits.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really easy to get distracted by things that will give you dopamine hits, like using social media.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, swiping through and looking for that next video,
Yep.
video. What that is it's a dopamine pursuit. But if you give yourself actual goals, I notice when I have a structured, planned out day, I'm not using social media. And
Yeah.
when I'm not living a structured life throughout the day, and I didn't plan my day out, that's when I find myself swiping on my phone
Yep.
for hours. I mean, literally turns into hours like of just watching stupid. I mean, I send you the links, and it's really easy when somebody sends you a link.
Yeah,
and then
I
you
don't
click
watch
on
half
it.
of those TikTok things because then it leads you down to this freaking rabbit hole of like,
Yeah,
it's like you're
100%.
sitting there and I'm over here about to take a hit. I'm like, shoot that shit up. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I need some more. Right. So but what you were saying about too is like, that attainment, it changes chemically in the lobster's brain. And that's why Jordan Peterson, there is a near instantaneous transformation when it comes to the consequence of attainment. Right. So attaining your goals, attaining things, building habits is important. I know Jocko Willink and a lot of those other guys, they talk about those little wins, man. Get up early in the morning and make your bed. If you can make your bed, I mean, that's one win right there. And for the rest of the day, everything starts to kind of snowball into that. And the biggest message that I want with this podcast is a couple of things. One is to find a valued purpose or a valued responsibility in that inner calling of what you're supposed to do and accomplish. And hopefully it's fucking bigger than you could ever imagine, to where you're like, there's no way I can do that. But I'm telling you right now, going after those things. And when you talked about Ryan Holiday's, The Obstacle is the Way is another book. You realize life, that's all it is. Life is just a bunch of obstacles to pursue the meaning of what you were created to accomplish. And Jordan Peterson talks about it. And I said it the last podcast, is the word sin is Latin, and it's an old archery word that was, what meant missing the mark, and it's also biblical, where sin is missing the mark. You were created to do something, to create something, for that responsibility. And we also hear in the Bible of, carrying your cross. They say, hey, are you carrying your cross? And that's that responsibility. And that's what it's talking about. And it goes into, narrows the way to go into heaven, because people don't pick up their cross and carry it. People don't look at their responsibility and fully commit to it, regardless of the people that are the naysayers and the ones that are the other crabs in the bucket that don't want you to shine, right? Nelson Mandela has a good saying is, who are you not to shine so other people feel inadequate, or for other people don't feel inadequate? You're supposed to be successful. You're supposed to kick some ass. And there's nothing wrong with being rich and making a lot of money, because then you can give and do things that can help other people. And it kind of sideways goes into, I don't want to say like, okay, cool, man, you're all motivated and you listen to some motivating stuff, and then you're going to be able to accomplish everything in the world, because, we all have our good days and our bad days. And you talked about those dopamine hits and those distractions, right? So some of the distractions, definitely, man. I mean, there's a couple of lies that I think a lot of people that are on YouTube and on these motivational videos, they don't really address. They can talk about it and they can get this music and hype music. And trust me, man, I listen to that shit all the time, because that's positive mental programming. But there's a book that another book that I want to talk about a little bit is called The One Thing, right? And it's written by Gary Keller with Jay Papasan, but it's extraordinary results. It's the truth, the surprisingly simple truth behind getting extraordinary results. And in this book, he talks about, there's a couple of different lies to success. 6 lies being, the first one is everything matters equally, right? Second one being multitasking. Third is a disciplined life. Fourth is willpower is always on will call. 5 is a balanced life, and 6 is big is bad. But I wanted to talk about how everything matters equally. So what are your thoughts about looking at planning and goal planning, and how do we attain, or how do we think about the ones that are the most important, and which ones matter more than the others?
Well, so talking about planning, so first you have to set your goals, and the most important thing to do is to have a goal and look at them regularly, right? And so that's goal setting 101. The first thing you want to do, I mean, figure out where you want to be in life. And there's different types of goals, but a really good exercise is to really just say, like, where do I want to be 5 years from now or 10 years from now? What, and I, yeah, and and that's a good tool. Is you turned on to this is the high performance planner, by Brendon Burchard, and it's based off of the book of the same name, right? And the what is the name of the book? The high
High
performance
performance habits, I think. Yeah.
habits, yes. And he created a high performance planner, that you turned me on to. You have a lot more experience with this than I do. I just got mine. I ordered it on Amazon. I have Amazon Prime. Such an amazing tool to have. But I got it sent to me same day, and I started working on this almost immediately. That's actually where I was at in the book, was like, my life vision. If I could describe my ideal future in a single paragraph, this is how I would describe it. And I described it as if it were already obtained, right? That's how I wrote it down. I am financially secure. My bills are not only paid in full ahead of time, but I also have money in savings. I have a job. I can work remotely, and I have plenty of time to focus on my health and my family. I am happily married to a beautiful woman who adores me as much as I do her. I am active in my community and have a tight circle of friends with healthy relationships. I travel with my loved ones at least twice per year. I mean, that's what I want my life to look
Wow, you
like. And
wrote that?
yeah.
That's dope.
And
I like it, dude. That's like,
but
I thought that was shit was written by Brendon Burchard, man. That's good shit. That's really good.
So I mean, but it's like, what do you want your life to look like? And I mean, that's I didn't get oddly specific with it. I just, that's what I think, based off of
That's
what I want
I
right
think
now.
that's perfect. You know what I mean? And I know I keep beating this Jordan Peterson drum, but he has a self-authoring program that we signed up, and I signed you up for too, and gifted to you as well, but we haven't done it. Right. So that's going to have to be a goal that we need to do. But you know what? The first thing that they do is they talk about writing about your past, future, and present. Right. What is the worst situation that you could ever imagine being in? Poor, no job, divorced, kids are shit, whatever, right? And imagine that reality comes because you are not going after or pursuing your responsibility and doing those things. And that's it. And then it does the same thing where it's like, it makes you address it and think about it. And not only think about it, but write it down. Because I think there's something very powerful when it comes to the act of writing something, because you're actually creating it into the universe, right? You're writing something. And that's why it's important to journal and note take and do those kind of things. And I know everyone's like, oh, you got a diary or whatever, right? And this is kind of a diary, right? This is a diary of high performance people, and how this kind of came. But to not get off the thing with Jordan Peterson, but he has them do the same thing. What's your ideal vision of the future of what it could be, and be specific. The more specific, the better. And now think of, if you don't go after those things to do it, you're going to be the opposite, the thing that you feared the most. And in doing so, and having these people write these things on the self-authoring program, like, I think it was something like 40% of the people did better in college and grades and all that kind of stuff. And that's a huge thing. So when we talk about these books, we talk about how great Amazon Prime is to be able to get some of these things that we talk about. If you're listening to this podcast or watching this podcast, if anything that you take from this is that, write down some of these books and check them out. Or better yet, just go on to YouTube and you can actually do it quick. And a lot of these books have like a 10-minute, what's the main principles behind it, right? And then you can just
A
go
lot of
through it
times
and
it's by
take
the
those
author.
things 100%.
Yeah.
There's another
You
guy.
mentioned you
Yeah.
mentioned Making Your Bed earlier. That was a book by Admiral McRaven.
Yep.
McRaven, and he
Yeah.
was an
That guy.
admiral in the Navy, and
Yeah. He's that guy that did that speech
he did a
in college.
speech at
Yeah.
at a college. I believe it was his alma mater, in Texas A&M. I believe, I could be wrong. It was Texas. It was one of the Texas colleges, and he was doing a speech there, and the name of the speech was "Make Your Bed," and the book that he wrote was based off of that speech. but you can go online and watch the speech. And it's very, I mean, it's just him breaking down the story of like the importance of getting up in the morning and making your bed. And I mean, I was just saying that because based off of what you were just saying, like you can find pretty much anything for free on the internet. If you're not a reader, I'm not a reader. I honestly, before the age of 30, I think I read 2 books, and I'm 35, and I'm not that beyond, that number, as far as sitting down and physically reading. Sometimes I'm just not that good at digesting information. I know a lot of people are like me, where they just, the reading comprehension isn't at the same level as the listening comprehension. So oftentimes I listen to an audiobook and I take notes, and I analyze it, and then I go and I research the things that they're talking about, and that works for me. Some people have to read, you know.
You don't have to read, like we are talking about the book with Robert Greene was saying, you know what you like and dislike as a kid. You know how, when you can start learning how you learn and figuring those things out that motivates you, you don't have to be, a guy with glasses that read books all day, because it might not be practical. But our ability to digest podcast stuff on Spotify when we're doing the dishes or working out or whatever else, this is what I do. I mean, that's all I pretty much now.
Yeah.
Like most of the stuff, like I'll watch movies and things like that, and it's fun to get a little bit of dopamine hits. And then, but most of the time it's because I want to have that relation connection and spend a little bit of time with my wife where I'm not, in a book or listening to something that she thinks is kind of nerdy. I'm like nerding out on stuff, but to be able to spend, have those other ways of digesting information with audio books and all that kind of stuff is important. So again, like Andrew hit it on the nail on the head where he talked about that speech and those things. You should be writing that down. You said it was Admiral who?
Admiral McRaven. He was an admiral in the United States.
I think he was a
Navy.
Navy SEAL or something too, right? I'm pretty sure he was.
He
like
was.
badass,
That
right?
was that was the premise behind the story, was his experience. Well, at least the book. I don't remember everything about the speech itself. I'm pretty sure he does hit on being a Navy SEAL, but in the book he goes into great detail about his experience and BUDS training. And
Yeah.
I think that's like the meat and potatoes of the book, is like the lessons learned in BUDS training, and he goes into great detail about, being a sugar cookie. What is a sugar cookie if you're not?
Well, we know about it in the Marine Corps, man. Tell
Yeah. Yeah. So
we know.
anybody, any non-military personnel listening, being a sugar cookie is when you go out into the ocean, and then you come out of the ocean drenched, dripping wet, and then you roll around in the sand, and then you still have to continue doing your physical training, and you're covered in sand. And
so ours was different. They would put sunscreen on us and put it in the IT pit. So we're got sunscreen just lathered all over us, and it's the same way, man. You get in there, and it's even worse because that shit is not going anywhere. Sunscreen's not going anywhere, so that sand shit, and this shit's it sucks, man.
It's oil based.
Not only that, but you're getting that shit back into your room and stuff, and you hit inspections, and then it's in your armpit, and you're chafing and all that other stuff. So
yeah, and the indoctrination. I mean, it's the hazing process, but it's good for I mean, suffering. There's something about suffrage that makes you appreciate things a lot more, right? When you have to work for it, So the whole hazing process of the military and the indoctrination of all the different military branches, it definitely creates a sense of pride once you get to the other side, right? Once you get there.
So yeah, when you're attainment, you hit the oxytocin, but the serotonin comes when you have suffering together, right? So you got the dopamine hit, it's the quick attainment. And if you guys want to hear more about this, and hopefully I'm not saying them all wrong, but Simon Sinek was a perfect guy. He has a couple of books, Start with Why. But then he also has another book called Leaders Eat Last, where he's basically taken the military mindset and with the Marine Corps, and how in the Marine Corps, we have a culture of, the leaders eat last. All of our junior Marines are going to eat first, and the leader is going to eat last. And if the leader is a good leader, his men are going to give them, him a portion of their food so that he can eat as well. But serotonin and oxytocin are those team building and really powerful chemical emotions that go on in the brain, but you're only attaining that through brotherhood, right? So that's one of the reasons why it's important to have friends that you can rely on and get through some shit together, right? Is that kind of what you're addressing? Like,
Right. Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm getting a phone call right now.
no worries. So I'm going to go into this high performance planner real quick. You want to just throw yourself on mute real quick. I'll hit this up real quick. So this high performance planner, I learned about this a while ago from my obsession with YouTube and podcasts and all those other things. And there's a man by the name of Tom Bellew, and his podcast videos on YouTube is called Impact Theory. And if you haven't checked out Impact Theory, it's probably to me on par with Joe Rogan as far as the people that they put on the show in order to kind of talk about different topics. But Tom Bellew's whole thing is, he looks at the matrix. He's trying to pull everybody out of the matrix, and he's trying to put people, and we're kind of mirroring the same thing as, books, people, and things that can pull people out of the matrix and to live a better life. But he had Brendon Burchard on, and he got to go over the high performance planner. And what this planner actually does is I'll move this move this a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. And I just did it again. I hit the freaking thing. But it has not only your planning stuff, but it has throughout the day all kinds of different things that you write to yourself in the beginning of the day and the end of the day. For instance, the morning mindset. The number one is the one thing I can get excited about today is, and number two is, if one word could describe the kind of person I want to be today, then that word is, and I said, hey, productive, because I need to get the passion of accomplishment into tangible accomplishments, right? So, but at the end of the day, if you kind of look at this, it basically goes into judging yourself on clarity, energy, necessity, productivity, influence, and courage. And at the end of the week, you go into an actual assessment of a bigger life attainment. And it goes into like weekly life review, and you score yourself on health, mental, emotion, your partner and love life, family, friends, mission, experience, spirit, finance, learning. And basically you do a weekly review of high performance habits. So why I think this is important and better than a lot of other planning books and goal books and stuff like that is it's actually not only like all the intangible things that come with his book, but it's tangible to how you're going to use it as a tool and force you to do some journaling and some writing and to really reflect on what things are important, not just what kind of car I drive, what am I going to do? Am I going to eat tomorrow? Whatever, right? These are things like, hey, what's my friendships like? How can I be a better friend? Who should I reach out to in order to mend a friendship? How can I improve my spiritual life? You know what I mean? And those things are awesome because you can be real and actually make progression. It's almost like working out. Andrew, you just said you're going back to the gym. You go back to the gym and you don't have a plan of what you're going to do. You're all over the fucking place. You're looking in the
100%.
mirror. You're going to get some water. You're fucking putting some weights on there. You're sitting down, seeing if a girl's looking, getting back up like you just lifted 315. You didn't do shit. You put the weights back, right? But when you come up with the plan,
it gets really, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but yeah, it gets really specific. I mean, just like I plan to go and work out. Okay. Well, like then if you don't have a specific plan on what days you're going, then you're just sporadically going. You look back at the last week and you say, wait a minute, I did legs that day, and then I did arms the other day, and then I did legs again. Well, I didn't do
did you
chest,
even
I
do
didn't
the
do
sets
shoulders.
right? Yep. You don't even know.
Right.
But if you're
Well,
journaling everything, you can see that. So these little aspects are like, hey, they were 2s and 3s out of 5. Now they're getting better. So it's your ability to focus. It's like a compass on steering what is important. And sometimes those goals that I'm talking about, and I want people to really understand is this episode that we're talking about. I don't want you to be like, okay, here's a systematic approach to planning, and here's how I put sticky notes on my wall and shit like that. I mean, that's good. You talked about your goal, putting it on your mirror, kind of like Rocky and shit, right? You put what you want to attain. You want to be a champion. You want to beat Apollo Creed or whatever it is. But this is your ability to look at those internal things, right? Those character development, courage, and those things like that. So yeah, is that what you were going to kind of getting into the
Yeah,
gym stuff, right?
oh, so as far as the gym goes, yeah, and I mean, it gets even more specific than that because there's been times where I've like not only like at the end of my week, I look back and say, well, I didn't really work out as much as I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? It's because I didn't plan properly for it, right? And so that was what I was going to get into with the goals. You know, like I mean, you have to have your goal. You have to figure out where you want. That's where I started talking about with the journal. Figure out where you want to be in life, and then based off of where you want to be in life, you can break that down into like, what do I need to do to become that person, or
Mm-hmm.
be at that place in life where I see myself 5 or 10 years from now. And that's how I develop my goals, you know, and I want to be healthier. I want to have I want to have a longer life, longer longevity, but I don't want to just have a long life and be unhealthy and have bad mobility and bad knees, bad back, bad neck, and not be able to get up out of bed. I want to have a long life and still be youthful. So what do I have to do to achieve that? Well, my fitness goals have to involve, you know, they have to involve all the things that go into mobility. I have to do mobility training. I have to do weight training. I have to, I have to work on the things that I want to have long term, and I have to focus on them. And so I develop my goals, and then I put them in front of me and I look at them, and you have to have a process. So like you don't want to leave your development to randomness, because then you end up not achieving your goals, or you end up frustrated, or you say, oh, it's not working. But it gets even more specific than that. And it's not just, oh, plan your week. It's also plan your day. I go to I can't tell you how many times I showed up to the gym to do chest, and then I'm sitting there wasting time at the gym looking up chest workouts because I did not plan properly. Right. And it's like, going to the gym. So now what I try to do is the day before, if I know I'm doing a chest workout the next day, then I am deciding the day before what chest work exercises I want to do. If I'm doing legs, I decide the day before. So I'm thinking about it, I'm internalizing it. I have it written down. So when I get there, I already know how to do the motion, what motion I'm doing. If I've never done this specific workout before, I know how to do it because I've watched a video and I've watched people who are experts in this particular area on how to do that thing. So, and that's a trial and error thing. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been to the gym and wasted time sitting on the bench looking up exercises on different ways to work out my arms or my back or my shoulders or my chest. But yeah, I mean, so have your goals, look at them regularly, put them in front of you, and then have a process for how you're going to get there. So like, that's where really like the planning process, and have a time. That's another important thing, is have a time for planning, because not a lot of people fall short on the planning process. If you don't have a predetermined time set for when you're going to plan your work, then you're probably not going to, you're going to fall off, right? And what a common phrase that I think a lot of people have heard: if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. So you have to plan to plan. You have to have a set day. For some people, if you work on Monday through Friday, maybe Saturdays or Sundays.
Yeah, you got to meal prep.
Right. I mean, you're going to meal prep your meals. I mean, you have to plan your finances. You have to plan your workout schedule. You have to plan your family time. You have to plan around your work schedule, right? You have the constants. You have a work schedule. For most people, you have a work schedule that you're going through, and well, on this day, this is when I'm blocked out that time. But then you have to plan your relationships. I like, when are you going to spend time with your significant other if you have one? When are you going to spend time with your friends? I mean,
so it kind of reminds me of the book.
Plan it. I was going to say, if you don't plan your social time, then you could end up playing video games for 12 hours.
Right.
you know, and I mean, that's fine every once in a while. But I mean, there's been points in my life where I've played video games for 12 hours. I mean, but other areas of my life started to be neglected because I wasn't, an unplanned event, right?
And Jordan Peterson talks about there's nothing wrong with playing video games and rewarding yourself, right? He has a video that talks about it. He's like, set up something to attain, and don't be don't be a dictator to yourself. That's what he says. It's
Mhm.
like, you need to reward yourself. You need to do the Pomodoro method, where it's, you study for 45 minutes and you take a break for 5 minutes and you do 4 reps of that, right? It's just like working out. You do one workout, minute of rest or whatever, and you do some sets, and then you walk away, 5-minute rest. And that's Pomodoro, the Pomodoro principle, or a way of doing it, is that, you know what I mean? And, he talks about, like, Tim Ferris is a really good author too. He's got a book called The 4 Hour Work Week, where he was able to hack and strategize ways of doing everything so he could have nothing but free time. He would just outsource all of his work to people in India and stuff like that were doing like master degree level, work and stuff. And that's awesome. So if you can't hack that kind of shit, and that's why I brought up Tom Bellew's impact theory, is he brings those people, like Rob Diedrich, from Fantasy Factory, and Robin Big. And if you think that guy's just a skateboarder and he just jumps around and does all that stuff and does ridiculousness or whatever that show is, that dude, Rob Diedrich, if you haven't seen the episode, he goes on to Impact Theory, look it up. I mean, he is absolutely hacking and taking all the data to figure out what's his best time, optimal time to wake up. What does he eat for breakfast? And he's charting all this shit on data, on everything. And then he makes those decisions based upon the most high performance he can do. Right. And he puts that into play. And that's why he has extra time to do all these extra things. So this is the science behind the tools, right? So your tools are the weights to work out, right? We'll put this in a concept, we'll bridge this concept abstractly. But, and then you look at this planner is your workout planner, right? It's showing the history of what you're doing. It's putting some actual thought process behind getting those gains. But what we're talking about, these intangible things, is the science behind sports medicine. It's the science behind nutrition. It's the science behind getting the most out of those workouts. These are the intellectual things that we're talking about, that if you're not doing this or you're not reading this, please, the biggest message of this podcast is to look up those YouTube videos. And you don't even have to read it. You can just hit 10 minutes. And these things are going to spark a fire, and they're going to get you to start attaining true goal attainment. And then what Andrew's talking about, being able to write what you want and understanding what you want, is huge when it comes to, hey, now I have a target. Now I know what to aim for, and I'm going to fuck it every day. I'm going to tear some shit up and get motivated. And then you can use these videos things to just snowball it. And that's, you talk to anybody that's highly successful or an entrepreneur, are probably going to say the same thing. It's kind of cliche, but this is how you do it. This is how you become righteous, successful, and a badass, right? And you got to do it together. You got to have friends. You got to have people. I want, Andrew is one of my guys that I tell, hey, I'm going to do this. I'm writing a book. I'm writing fucking 3 books right now. You know what I mean? If you guys don't know. And I like to tell the people that I don't think we're going to be positive about it. I like to tell the people that I think might hate on it. You know what I mean? Because that's going to cause me to go, I don't want them to say, oh, he's just talking shit. He's not actually going to do it. Sometimes it's good to tell the naysayers about the people that don't want you to succeed. You know what I mean? Because it's going to light that fire, man. So definitely Andrew's one of those guys that I'm like, hey, I'm doing this. And then I'm a squirrel. So we'll see if I'm good at starting shit, but we'll see if I actually are able to complete all these things. But that's a part of this podcast, why we jumped into it so quick without having everything perfect, was like, bro, we can talk about some shit, but action is the most important thing. And gets me on the side for, like, another guy that you got to listen to, another one. So get your pencil ready. Jim Rohn. If you haven't watched Jim Rohn or Les Brown, both of those are wonderful people, but Jim Rohn talks about action, right? Every day. And you talked about it, to attain goals. you have to better yourself. And Jim Rohn talks about this. Why couldn't you increase your skills tenfold? If you want to be paid 10 times more money and make more money, guess what you need to do? You need to make yourself 10 times more valuable in the organization that you're at. So you need to start with yourself, right? And then Simon Sinek talks, you need to start with why. So let's think about those three things when we're talking about attaining our goal or setting up goals. Is sometimes you have to put in the work. Jocko Willink, David Goggins, all those guys. If you're not getting up in the morning and fucking crushing souls, you're probably not going to ever get 10 times the pay. You're never going to drive a Lamborghini. If you're not willing to suffer and delay gratification, if you're not able to do those things and have the discipline it takes, bro, you're probably not going to do it. And you're just talking shit. So I think it's awesome that I was able to inspire Andrew a little bit, do the same thing and think, hey man, because military, it's real easy to be motivated and inspired because you're force motivated. But for civilians, and these are the people that we want to reach, is the dads out there that are in their 30s and 40s that are like, what the fuck is my mission? I'm trapped with 3 kids, a job, you know what I mean? What can I do to make myself have true happiness? And these are the things and the resources that we're trying to push out to you in some of these books, in order to like go on Amazon, quickly buy them up, or listen to them on audio while you're driving to work, and start working on yourself.
Yeah, I think we named about 10 different books so far this podcast. But you know, one thing
Here's my question to you. Let's recap them. Do you know which ones
I did not write them all down.
All right.
We thought so go ahead.
All right. So the first one again is this is the second one, but Jordan Peterson, Beyond Order. The first ones are the 12 Rules of Life. This is 12 More Rules of Life. This gets a lot deeper. The first book is white, and it's the 12 Rules of Life. So if you see it on Amazon, you need to pick up the first one, read it, because I mean, it's like everything in there is awesome. The second book that we kind of discussed, which is, it's a little bit different, but if those of you guys ever read The 40 Laws of Power by Robert Greene, which this guy actually made a book with 50 Cent as well, which was kind of cool, the rapper. So, and that's because a lot of rappers and people that grew up in the mean streets kind of went over the 40 Laws of Power. But this one is the Daily Laws, which goes into like all 3 of his books that kind of mix it together. And another good one, and it's a little bit of an easier read, is The One Thing. And the one thing is basically focusing on, and it goes over and over again, is basically stacking the dominoes to that goal, that big value goal in which you want to attain, and being able to stack those dominoes backwards. And it talks about the one thing. So what is the one thing I can do today that in doing so will make this happen easier? And it stacks all the way down, right? So we have a 10-year plan, 5-year plan. Tony Robbins always discussed, hey, everybody underestimates, or overestimates what they can do in a year, but they underestimate what they can do in 5 years. So having those plans and that vision board is good. But it's always asking yourself and prioritizing, what's the one thing that's most important? What's the one thing that I can do today that in doing so would make me and my wife have a better marriage? And if that's important to you because you used this high performance planner, right? Which is only about, I think you can get a year worth. There's 6 of these. Each one is for 2 months. I think it's like $25. You can't get a better deal for a planner, you know what I mean, for $25 on Amazon.
The value that you get out of that you're going to get out of this planner is far beyond the cost of the planner itself. I mean, it's a 60-day planner. What's interesting about it is the price changes based on the color. Did you notice that?
So you should get the pack. I get the pack. And then what I do is I share this with people and I just give them away. I was in an advanced course for my military, and in my big speech was, hey, I handed these out and I wanted to talk about these planners. And I said, you know what? I want you guys, they all pick the colors and shit. And I said, okay, now I want you to tell me your favorite color and your power animal. Right. And I kind of tied it into it. Like, I had the red one and I was like fucking red squirrel, you know what I mean? And like, now if you don't do this and you don't actually do the planner every day, you're letting down that fucking power animal, right? And it was funny because I had a guy that had an orange one and he's like, orange tiger and shit. I'm like, it was like I was hypnotizing and shit. But
Right.
yeah, the high performance planner by Brendon Burchard. He's also on Impact Theory, so you guys should check out that video, and it's definitely worth the money.
At the time of this recording, the multi-pack was sold out on Amazon, but you can get the black one and the green one for some reason are the cheaper of the like they have like 5 different colors. They have blue, yellow,
Orange, red,
orange,
green,
green,
and black. Yep.
and black. Yeah. And
All the colors of the Power Rangers.
red was like $90 or something like that. Like it must be in a high demand, but red
It's a
was
power
very
color,
expensive.
brother.
Yeah, the power colors were definitely the higher. Green was the cheapest. It was like $22. Black was $25 something. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting that they had different prices. But
it might be coming from different sub sources, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. It looks like it was all coming from the same store, but you're probably right because Amazon is a little funny about that. They have different sellers and so on. But we've been spending a lot of time talking about this, but this is the new flavor for me. I mean, I'm really excited. I don't think I've ever been more excited about something than I am about this planner because I know I just looking at it and reading it and researching it, watching the Impact Theory with Brendon Burchard. I mean, I've never been so hyped about something so. I mean, it seems trivial, like planning your week seems trivial. Planning your day seems trivial. Journaling seems trivial. But like all this tool right here, I mean, it has at the beginning of it, it has a whole life assessment. And it's broken down into different categories: health, mental and emotional, uh, partnership and love, family, friends, mission, experiences, spirituality, finances, and learning. And you rate yourself where you're currently at on each one of those things. And you know, you may not, these are things that you're not necessarily focused on and putting intentional effort into. So that, I mean, and you're once you rate yourself and you have to
I can
look at it.
guarantee 100%. You can't put 100% focus in any one of them. So we talked about what really
Right.
matters is like, that's why the assessment's so important on every week and every day is because you might need to readjust, right? You're off target. You need to adjust fire and then fire again. You know what I mean? So yeah.
But this is just a tool, and I'm really excited. I don't know. I'm like I said, I don't think I've ever been more excited about it, like getting a book or a planner or anything. I've bought planners throughout the years. I mean, actually, there's one. Hold on, let me grab it.
So those of you guys listening, the hardest part of this planner, I will say right now, the hardest part of this planner is actually doing it every day. Because you'll get sidetracked, and if you don't continue to do it every day, that's the hard thing in discipline. And I'm not by any means perfect. I've got probably a couple of these planners that are half filled out. You know what I mean? But it does, like what Andrew's saying, is it forces you to take time at night to answer questions for you to be able to reflect on what happened and what was important, and then think about what's important the next day. And the biggest times are at night and in the morning, right? And now it sets the tone for everything else.
Mm-hmm. And this, so like honestly, like this tool is like something that I was unconsciously looking for a long time ago. So this is a journal, not like a planner that I bought. And I bought this in 2016. And I was trying to use this to set, so I wrote down my physical goals, my professional goals, my intellectual goals, my financial goals, my adventures goals. So, and more financial goals. So I wrote down what my goals were and I dated it. It's a November 6th, 2016. And, I wrote down what's your dream. I don't know where I was getting this information from at the time, but I mean, it's all
it
good
sounds
stuff.
super similar.
Yeah, I mean, it's all good stuff. I mean, 12 categories: physical, emotional, material, intellectual, spiritual, psychological, professional, financial, creative, adventure, character. Like, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if I got this from Brendon Burchard back in 2006
It's
and 16.
probably one, because
Yeah.
this is
And
all it's
and
all
this is
tested and
this was
studied. You know what I
me.
mean? Yeah.
This was me trying to create a tool like this from something that has blank pages. And you see how far I got in this. I found this the other day, and I just thought this was hilarious
Well, the high
because
performance planner is all research based on all these, big CEOs and executives and the things that are the most important and how they become successful, man. Because,
Mhm.
so
But I can't be the only person that has bought a planner. And in the planner, you start off. This is what I call good intentions. I started off with great intentions, all the greatest intentions in the world, and I literally never used it again. And it's been sitting on a shelf. And I've moved this thing to, I think, two or three different homes over the years, and it just did. I never got anywhere with it because it wasn't structured, right? It wasn't this. And so, like, this, I mean, unintentionally, this is what I was, or unconsciously, this is the type of planner that I was looking for. So I think that's why I'm like nerding out on it right now. And with that being the topic of our podcast, it's just perfect timing. I mean, I think we
well,
decided to do this podcast because
what's
this
cool
is
now is
something
you're
that,
nerding out to it, and also now we can be accountability partners as part of, like, hey man, what was your scores this week, bro?
right,
You know what I mean? You
right.
got to start it on
And
that and be like, oh shit, man, Brian was asking me my scores and I didn't even finish my shit. And you, you know what I mean? You might,
right.
but I
Yeah.
mean, that'd be a cool thing to do. I mean, and then maybe for the listeners and viewers too, man, like if you guys think this is good stuff and you actually buy the high performance planner, I would love for you guys to leave your comments in the channel. And for anything, any comments, anything that we're doing good, anything that we can do better. Because this is something that we're trying to work and build, and really what it is not to be famous or make money, but to give you these resources and these tools. And some of them, like, I'm not a guru, but I mean, I'm like a half guru. Like I still got to go into completion on some of the things, but I am very passionate and I'm a squirrel, and I'm chasing all these other weird nuts up these trees that are like these universal laws and practices and things that kind of been echoed throughout time to make people successful. And it's funny because, especially with stoicism, all these things have already been talked about. All of these things, biblical stuff and these laws are all the same. And if we could push this out and be a beacon, to be able to, I think you address like a thermostat to change the temperature of people in the room, and definitely within ourselves to be better people. I think it's going to not only help the nation, but it's going to help the world, man. Like, and this is what we're trying to do here at the Righteous Dad podcast. Is there any other closing remarks? We're at about 118, right? 118 right now. And I want to kind of keep it up, or keep it, because I got some dad responsibilities as well. And the kids, we might go grab some dinner, but yeah,
Yeah,
man.
I just wanted to close. I mean, I wanted to leave it with, obviously we talked about some tools for goal setting and planning. We mentioned briefly, the importance of having a space, having a time of day set to make your plan, and having a space that you do it. So, like, for me, it's my office that I have, and this is like not a fun zone for me. I don't have a television in here. I try not to get on social media when I'm in here. This is my space where this is my productivity space, right? So I
Trying to get
have
that new dinosaur. I'm trying to take
yeah,
the
that's
DNA out of the fucking.
yeah. So, and having a time set for planning, having a safe place for planning where it's like distraction free, right? Um, you know, having your goals, setting your goals, keeping them in front of you, visualize yourself achieving your goals regularly. I mean, that's huge. I think a lot of people shortchange themselves on that. Brendon Burchard hits on that a lot in the impact theory episode that you mentioned. Also, visualizing the things that you're going to struggle with throughout the day. When you're going to work, if you have somebody that you don't get along with very well, visualize dealing with that person, and how will you deal with that problem or that person or that situation.
That's one of the
Visual
questions, right?
um, it,
Number
I
4, a
believe so.
situation that can stress me out. or trip me up today could be.
Right.
And I put becoming scatterbrained and overwhelmed with all the tasks that I set and my expectations.
Yeah, and then like just have a process. So like what this journal is, it's a tool for having a process, right? So it gives you an opportunity to assess yourself, and that's the hardest thing for a lot of people to do, is to cut themselves open and look at where are they falling short, where can they do better, what can they improve on. And so I definitely, I mean, this is where we're talking about this a lot because it's a tool that we're currently using. It's a tool that Brian's used, and he turned me on to it, and I'm going to be using this very, very regularly. But I mean, your life is your conscious design, so it's all about what you make of it, and you have permission. If you're listening to my voice right now, I'm giving you permission to be the architect of your life, be the writer, be the director, the producer, and the main character of your own story. Don't fall into the trap of being an NPC character. And it's kind of like an ongoing joke that Elon Musk makes, being an NPC character in somebody else's video game. I mean, but that has a lot of I mean, I think everybody knows somebody or runs into somebody throughout the day where you could point out and say, you're an NPC character. You're just going through the motions, and what that means is that person doesn't have goals. If everybody knows somebody that, or ran into somebody throughout the day today or yesterday, that's just going through the motions, and they don't have goals, they don't have something that they're working towards. And I mean, maybe you can help them, but you got to fix yourself first and be the better person, be the person of change, right?
So I think you said it good, like, hey, don't be that NPC player. This is your script. So get online, go on Amazon, get this high performance planner, flip the script. This is your script, your producer, script director, how Andrew was talking about it. But hey, I wanted to just recap real quick. Talked about goals and happiness in relation to our responsibilities. So if you liked what you do, I'm going to put a responsibility on you guys. It's a little call to action. Make sure that you hit that like button, subscribe. Please follow us on Spotify. Tell your friends, anybody that you think that could benefit, even if you don't want to do everything and use this high performance planner, but just sharing it for other people to become more successful is awesome. So we challenge you guys to do the same thing. Check it out. Please go back into the episode and write down some of the other books that we're talking about and some of the other podcasts. And hopefully these things can help you become better and help you with your life. I want to thank you again for spending some time listening to us. Hey, this is a thing that we're going to get better at, and we need your help. So please, again, leave some comments down on the YouTube channel, like, share, and let's continue to grow this podcast in this community. Check out episode 1 with Doc Soto and check out what they're doing at My Veteran Passion. Again, I want to thank my real good friend, Andrew Pratt, for being with me today and taking his time. I know it's different over there, and just kicking ass. And I look forward to the next episode. And I want to thank you guys again. Till next time, Righteous Dad Podcast, signing out.